The eviction notice was printed on bright pink paper, as if the cruelty needed color to make it official. Maya Torres held it with hands that trembled for more than just the February cold seeping through the cracked window of her studio apartment. 72 hours. That's all she had left before the sheriff would arrive with his clipboard and his practiced indifference, boxing up what little she owned and setting it on the curb like garbage. She was 29 years old, though exhaustion had carved lines around her eyes that made her look older. Her daughter, Sofia, was 6, currently asleep on the futon they shared, curled around a stuffed giraffe named Mr. Patches that had seen better days. The giraffe's neck was held together with safety pins and hope, much like Maya's life. Outside, Boston's financial district glittered with wealth she'd never touch. She could see the towers from her 4th-floor window, monuments to success that might as well have existed on another planet. Maya worked in those buildings, though no one who mattered ever saw her. She was part of the invisible army that kept the corporate world running. The night cleaning crew that scrubbed toilets and emptied trash cans after the important people went home to their important lives. Her second job was at a 24-hour laundromat on Dorchester Avenue, folding other people's clothes from midnight to 4 a.m., breathing in detergent fumes that made her head ache. Her third job, the one she'd just lost 2 weeks ago, had been weekend shifts at a grocery store. They'd let her go without explanation, just a manager's shrug and sorry, budget cuts, leaving Maya $800 short on rent she couldn't afford even when she had 3 incomes. The eviction notice joined a stack of other disasters on her kitchen table. A shut-off warning from the electric company stamped in threatening red. A hospital bill from Sofia's emergency room visit last month when her fever spiked to 105 and waiting wasn't an option. A credit card statement showing a balance of $4,783 on a card with a limit of $5,000. The interest alone eating $140 every month. Maya had done the math. So many times the numbers were burned into her brain. Even working 80 hours a week, even skipping meals and buying nothing but essentials, even sacrificing everything, the math didn't work. She was drowning in slow motion, and no amount of swimming was getting her closer to shore. Her phone buzzed. A text from her brother, Daniel. Family meeting tomorrow. Grandmother's will. Be there. Maya stared at the message, feeling nothing. Her grandmother, Patricia Alvarado, had died 3 weeks ago at 87. Maya had learned about it from Facebook, not from her family, because they'd stopped including her in family news years ago. She was the failure, the disappointment, the one who got pregnant at 23 by a man who disappeared the moment he heard the word baby, leaving Maya alone with morning sickness and dreams that would never come true. She'd skipped the funeral. Not out of disrespect, but because she'd been working, because missing a shift meant missing meals, because she'd already been written out of the family story, and showing up would only highlight how far she'd fallen. But apparently, the will required her presence. Maya almost laughed. Her grandmother had made it clear what she thought of Maya's choices. "You made your bed with that worthless man," Patricia had said when Sofia was born. "Don't come crying to us when reality hits." Reality had hit again and again, with the force of a wrecking ball. But Maya had never cried to them. She'd suffered in silence, working herself to exhaustion, raising Sofia alone, surviving on stubbornness and instant coffee. Whatever her grandmother had left her, if anything, it would probably come with conditions, with judgment, with one more reminder that she wasn't good enough. The law office occupied the 14th floor of a building Maya cleaned on Wednesday nights. The irony wasn't lost on her. As she rode the elevator, she'd mopped countless times, Sofia's small hand gripping hers. Her daughter wore a dress from Goodwill that almost fit, her hair pulled back in braids. Maya had woven that morning with fingers that shook from too much coffee and too little sleep. The waiting room smelled like leather and money. Maya's family was already there. Daniel, 32, in his tailored suit and Italian shoes, working as a financial analyst for a firm that managed billions. Her sister, Carmen, 34, dripping in jewelry from her husband's medical practice, her expression a careful blend of pity and contempt. Uncle Roberto, executor of the estate, checking his Rolex like this was an inconvenience he'd rather avoid. No one greeted Maya. Daniel glanced at her with the distant acknowledgement you'd give a stranger. Carmen's eyes swept over Sofia's second-hand dress with barely concealed disdain. Uncle Roberto simply nodded toward empty chairs in the corner, the cheapest seats in the room. The lawyer, Marcus Whitfield, entered with silver hair and a voice that had announced fortunes and failures for 40 years. He carried a leather portfolio that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. "Thank you all for coming," he began, settling behind his desk with practiced efficiency. "We're here to execute the last will and testament of Patricia Maria Alvarado, deceased January 28th, 2025. Maya held Sofia closer. Her daughter was trying to be good, trying to sit still, but 6-year-olds weren't built for lawyers' offices and family tension. To my grandson, Daniel, Marcus read, his tone professionally neutral. "I leave my investment portfolio, currently valued at approximately $380,000, and my condominium in Naples, Florida, valued at $520,000. Daniel smiled. He'd always been grandmother's favorite, the one who went to business school, who knew wine and could discuss stocks. The golden child who'd never disappointed anyone. To my granddaughter, Carmen, I leave my art collection, jewelry, and the brownstone in Beacon Hill, valued at approximately $1.2 million. Carmen's smile was triumphant. She'd spent years cultivating grandmother's favor, visiting every Sunday, bringing flowers, listening to stories she'd heard 100 times. Investment paying off. The reading continued. Cousins received trust funds. Nieces and nephews inherited stock portfolios. Uncle Roberto got the family business, a small import company worth perhaps $200,000. Everyone was mentioned, acknowledged, rewarded for their place in the family hierarchy. Then silence fell. Marcus looked up from the will, his eyes finding Maya's. For just a moment, something flickered there that might have been sympathy. And to my granddaughter, Maya Isabel Torres, he read slowly, carefully. I leave the sailboat Esperanza del Mar, currently docked at Marina Bay in Quincy, slip number 47. Maya blinked. A boat? Her grandmother had owned a boat? The vessel is a 45-foot sloop, manufactured in 1987. Marcus continued. It requires significant repairs and has not been seaworthy for approximately 15 years. The marina has indicated outstanding docking fees of $18,500. These fees are the responsibility of the new owner. The room erupted in laughter. Not polite chuckles, but genuine amusement at the cosmic joke. Daniel actually slapped his knee. Carmen covered her mouth, but her eyes danced with cruel delight. A rusty boat with fees attached, Daniel said, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Grandmother always had a sense of humor, Carmen added, giving Maya exactly what she deserves. A worthless wreck that costs money. Uncle Roberto shook his head, something that might have been pity crossing his features. The boat's probably worth $3,000, maybe $4,000 if you can find someone desperate enough to buy it. After the docking fees, you'll owe about $15,000. I'd recommend signing it over to the marina and walking away. Cut your losses. Maya's throat tightened. Of course this was what she got. While everyone else received fortunes, she got debt disguised as inheritance. One more reminder that she was the failure, the disappointment, the one who deserved nothing but problems. Sofia tugged on her sleeve. Mommy, what's a sailboat? Maya forced a smile that felt like broken glass. It's like a big toy that floats on water, baby. Can we see it? Before Maya could answer, Marcus cleared his throat. There's one more thing. He pulled out a separate envelope, cream-colored and sealed with wax. Mrs. Alvarado left a personal letter for Maya. She requested it be given to you in private. He handed it across the desk. Maya took it with hands that had started shaking again. The envelope was heavy, expensive paper, her name written in her grandmother's shaky but determined handwriting. Is that it? Daniel asked, already standing. Because I have a meeting at 2. That concludes the reading, Marcus confirmed. The family filed out, their laughter echoing in the hallway. No one said goodbye to Maya. No one acknowledged Sofia. They simply left, returning to their successful lives, probably already planning how to spend their inheritances. Maya sat in the empty office, holding the envelope, feeling the weight of disappointment pressing down like ocean depth. "Miss Torres," Marcus said gently, "would you like privacy to read that?" "Can I use your bathroom?" Sofia asked, breaking the tension. "Of course, dear. Right down the hall. Second door on the left." After Sofia left, Maya carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper filled with her grandmother's handwriting. The ink was shaky, but the words were clear. "Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone." "Good. I was tired. 87 years is enough. I know what the family thinks of you. I know what I said to you when Sofia was born. I was wrong. Not about you making mistakes. Everyone does that, but about what those mistakes mean. You remind me of myself at your age. I got pregnant at 22 by a man my family hated. They threw me out, called me worthless, said I'd ruined my life. Maybe I had, but I survived anyway. I built something from nothing, worked 3 jobs just like you do now, raised your mother alone just like you're raising Sofia. The boat was mine. My secret, my escape, my dream. I bought it 40 years ago for $1,200, every penny I could scrape together. Spent years fixing it up, learning to sail, taking it out when the world got too heavy. It was the one thing that was completely mine. I stopped sailing 15 years ago when my hip gave out. Couldn't climb aboard anymore. Should have sold it, but I couldn't let it go. So it sat there, collecting fees and rust and secrets. Everyone else got money because money is what they value. You get the Esperanza because I think you need what I needed. Hope, freedom, the possibility of something different. The boat needs work, a lot of work, but it's sound underneath the damage. Just like you. There's something else, too. Something I never told anyone. Check the bilge. Look carefully. What I hid there 40 years ago might still be waiting. Or it might be gone, destroyed by time and salt water. I don't know. I stopped checking years ago when my body couldn't manage the ladder. But if it's there, if it survived, use it wisely. Use it to build the life they said you couldn't have. Don't let them make you small, Maya. Don't let them convince you that one mistake defines everything that comes after. With love from someone who understands, Abuela Patricia. Maya read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. Her grandmother had understood. After all these years of silence, Patricia had seen her, really seen her. Sofia returned, climbing into Maya's lap. "Mommy, why are you crying?" "Because Abuela left us something special, baby. The boat." "Yeah, the boat." Marcus had been watching quietly. "Miss Torres, I should mention that the marina has been patient about the fees, but they will eventually dispose of the vessel if payment isn't made. You have perhaps 30 days before they take legal action." "Can I see it? Before they take it, I mean." "Of course. The keys are with the marina office." He hesitated, then pulled out his card. "I knew your grandmother for 20 years. She was a remarkable woman. If you need help navigating this, please call me." Maya took the card, adding it to the collection of things she couldn't afford but desperately needed. The drive to Marina Bay took 40 minutes through traffic that mirrored Maya's thoughts, stop and go, going nowhere fast. Her car, a 2006 Honda Civic with 210,000 miles, coughed and wheezed, but kept moving. The check engine light had been on for 6 months. Maya couldn't afford to find out what it meant. The marina appeared through February mist, a collection of docks and boats ranging from gleaming yachts to working vessels. The office was a small building near the entrance, weathered wood and peeling paint. Inside, a man in his 60s looked up for paperwork. His face was weathered like driftwood, skin permanently tanned from decades on the water. "Help you. I'm Maya Torres. I inherited the Esperanza Del Mar." His expression shifted, becoming cautious. The Alvarado boat. "I'm Frank Morrison. Been harbor master here 30 years. He pulled out a file thick with papers. "I'm sorry for your loss. Patricia was a good woman. Paid her fees on time for 25 years. Then her health failed and, well, you can see the situation. $18,500 in fees. Give or take. 3 years of docking, 2 years of penalties, storage fees for winter months when she should have been pulled. The boat itself is in rough shape. Last survey I did showed her taking on water, rigging shot, sails rotted, engine probably seized. Can I see her anyway? Frank studied her for a long moment. You planning to sell her or sail her? I don't know yet. Fair enough. Slip 47. End of D-Doc. Here are the keys, though the cabin lock might be rusted shut. He paused. Miss Torres, I don't know what your situation is, but that boat needs about $30,000 in work to be seaworthy. Even then, she's worth maybe $15,000 on a good day. The math doesn't work. Maya almost laughed. Story of her life. I know, but I'd still like to see her. D-Doc stretched out over dark water, weathered boards creaking under Maya's feet. Sofia walked beside her, fascinated by the boats they passed. Sleek sailboats with names like Wind Dancer and Sea Dream. Working vessels with nets and equipment. Each one maintained, cared for, loved. Slip 47 was at the end, partially hidden by a maintenance shed. And there she was. The Esperanza del Mar looked exactly as advertised. A wreck. Her once white hull was stained with rust and algae. The deck was littered with leaves and debris from storms. Her mast stood crooked, rigging hanging loose like broken spiderwebs. Windows were clouded with salt spray and time. She sat low in the water, clearly taking on more than she should. But underneath the damage, Maya could see what her grandmother had seen. The lines were beautiful, classic, the kind of boat designed to cut through waves with grace. The teak trim, though weathered, showed quality craftsmanship. Someone had loved this vessel once, had poured time and money into making her special. She's sad, Sofia said, her 6-year-old wisdom cutting straight to truth. Yeah, baby, she is. Maya climbed aboard carefully, testing each step. The deck held, though it groaned in protest. She tried the cabin door. The lock was indeed rusted, but after several attempts and skinned knuckles, it gave way. The cabin smelled of mildew and abandonment. Water had leaked through countless places, staining cushions and warping wood. But the basic structure seemed sound. A small galley with a 2-burner stove. A navigation table covered in charts that had fused together with moisture. 2 small berths that might once have been cozy. A head that probably didn't work. And everywhere, evidence of her grandmother's presence. A coffee mug with world's best sailors still sitting in the sink holder. Books on navigation, their pages swollen and unreadable. Photographs pinned to a corkboard, showing a younger Patricia at the helm, grinning with pure joy. Maya touched the photos gently. She'd never seen her grandmother look like this. Happy, free, alive in a way that family dinners and Sunday visits never captured. Check the bilge, the letter had said. Maya found the access hatch near the base of the mast. It was stuck, swollen with moisture, but determination and a crowbar she found in the cockpit eventually won. The hatch lifted, revealing darkness below. Using her phone's flashlight, Maya peered into the bilge. Water sloshed at the bottom, maybe 6 inches, explaining why the boat sat so low. She needed to pump it out before doing any real searching. But even through the water, even in the dim light, Maya could see something. A metal box, about the size of a briefcase, bolted to the hull. Stainless steel, sealed tight, covered in barnacles and growth. Her heart hammered. This was it. This was what her grandmother had hidden. Maya climbed down the ladder, her feet splashing into cold bilge water that soaked through her shoes. The box was locked with a combination lock. Of course it was. She climbed back up, frustrated and curious in equal measure. What'd be in there? Money? Documents? Something valuable enough to hide for 40 years? Mommy, I'm cold. Sofia called from the dock, where Maya had wisely told her to wait. Coming, baby. Maya secured the cabin, locked it with a rusted key, and climbed back onto the dock. Her shoes squelched with every step, bilge water leaving a trail behind her. Frank was waiting near his office. Find what you were looking for? I don't know yet. Mr. Morrison, hypothetically, if someone wanted to restore this boat, where would they even start? He scratched his chin, thinking. Hull survey first. Make sure she's not rotting from the inside. Then pump the bilge, dry her out completely. Replace all the rigging, new sails, service the engine or replace it entirely. Fix the leaks, refinish the deck, update the electronics. He paused. You're looking at 200 hours of labor if you do it yourself, more if you hire it out. Plus materials. Like I said, $30,000 minimum. And that's if you don't find major structural problems. And the docking fees? I could give you 30 days. After that, I'm required to start seizure proceedings. I'm sorry, but I have owners who pay on time, and it's not fair to them. Maya nodded, understanding completely. Nothing was ever fair. Thank you for your honesty. As she drove home, Sofia, chattering about boats and water and adventures, Maya's mind raced. $18,500 in fees. $30,000 in repairs. She had $300 to her name and 3 days before eviction. The boat was impossible. Keeping it was insane. But her grandmother's letter echoed in her mind. The boat needs work, but it's sound underneath the damage. Just like you. That night, after Sofia was asleep, Maya sat at her kitchen table with the eviction notice and her grandmother's letter side by side. Two futures. One was certain disaster. The other was uncertain possibility. She thought about the metal box in the bilge, about 40 years of secrets, about a grandmother who'd survived being thrown out by her family and built something anyway. Maya pulled out her phone and called the only person who might help. Marcus Whitfield answered on the third ring. Miss Torres, I hope you might call. The boat has docking fees. $18,500. Do you know if my grandmother left any money to cover them? I'm afraid not. The estate had enough to cover funeral expenses and legal fees, but liquid assets were minimal. Everything valuable was already distributed. Maya's hope deflated. I see. Thank you. However, Marcus continued, there might be another option. The boat itself is your property now. You could leverage it for a loan. Who would loan money on a wreck? Someone who believes in potential over current condition. He paused. I'd like to make you an offer. I'll pay the docking fees and provide $5,000 for initial repairs. In return, if you sell the boat, I get my money back first, plus 10% interest. If you keep it, we can arrange a payment plan. Why would you do that? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because your grandmother asked me to watch out for you if I could. She didn't want to make it easy, didn't want to just hand you money. But she wanted to give you a chance. Consider this my way of honoring her wishes. Maya felt tears threatening again. I'll pay you back. Every penny. I know you will. I'll have papers drawn up tomorrow. In the meantime, get some sleep. Things often look different in the morning. But Maya didn't sleep. She lay in the dark, listening to Sofia breathe, thinking about boats and bilges and combinations locks. Thinking about grandmothers who understood what it meant to survive when everyone expected you to fail. And thinking about what might be waiting in a steel box at the bottom of a rusty boat, secrets sealed against time and salt and the weight of impossible odds. The papers arrived by courier the next morning. Marcus had moved with surprising speed, drawing up a loan agreement that was almost embarrassingly generous. $18,500 for the docking fees, paid directly to the marina. $5,000 in cash for repairs and supplies. Total debt, $23,500, with interest at 10% annually, no payments due for the first 6 months. Maya signed with shaking hands, feeling the weight of debt add to the collection already crushing her. But this debt felt different. This one came with possibility attached. She used the first $200 of the repair money for an emergency she couldn't avoid any longer. The landlord accepted it as a partial payment, giving her 2 more weeks before the eviction process continued. It bought time, though not enough. Never enough. The rest she saved for the boat, for whatever came next. That Saturday, Maya stood at slip 47 with Sofia and a borrowed bilge pump. Frank Morrison had loaned it to her with a skeptical expression that suggested he'd seen this movie before and knew how it ended. Most people give up after the first weekend, he'd said. Boat work is harder than it looks. Dirtier. More expensive. Everything takes 3 times longer than you expect. I'm used to things being hard, Maya had replied. Now, standing on the Esperanza's deck with February wind cutting through her jacket, Maya wondered if she'd been too confident. The boat looked worse in daylight. Every surface showed neglect. Every system appeared broken or breaking. This wasn't a restoration project. It was a resurrection. But her grandmother's letter was folded in her pocket, and the metal box waited below. Okay, baby, Maya said to Sofia, who was bundled in every warm thing they owned. You stay right here on the dock where I can see you. Don't move. Don't go near the water. Understand? I understand, Mommy. I'll be good. Maya climbed aboard and opened the cabin. The smell hit her again, mildew and decay and abandonment. She descended into the cabin, found the bilge hatch, and set up the pump. It coughed and sputtered to life, beginning the slow work of moving water from inside the boat to outside. While it pumped, Maya explored more carefully. The galley drawers held corroded utensils and plates. The navigation table revealed charts of Massachusetts Bay, routes marked in her grandmother's handwriting. One chart had a notation in the margin: perfect wind, perfect day, perfect freedom. The berths contained rotted cushions and blankets that would need replacing. But underneath, the wooden structure seemed solid. Wet, certainly. Damaged, yes, but not destroyed. In a small locker near the head, Maya found a journal. The leather cover was water-stained but intact. Inside, her grandmother's handwriting filled pages with dates and observations. June 15th, 1985. Bought the Esperanza today. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. Roberto said, I'm wasting money. My sister called it a midlife crisis. But standing at the helm, feeling the wind, I finally understood what freedom feels like. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom to choose. August 3rd, 1987. Sailed to Provincetown alone. Terrifying and exhilarating. Proved to myself I don't need anyone's permission to have adventures. September 12th, 1990. Installed the safe in the bilge today. Took all day, my hands are bleeding, but it's secure. Everything I've built, everything I've saved, hidden where no one would think to look. The family thinks I'm poor, struggling, barely making it. Let them think that. Let them dismiss me. Meanwhile, I'm building something they can't see, can't touch, can't take away. Maya's hands trembled as she read. A safe. Her grandmother had called it a safe, not just a box. What had she hidden for 35 years? The pump finally won its battle against the bilge water. Maya descended the ladder with her phone's flashlight and a crowbar. The water was gone, revealing a grimy hull covered in oil and sediment. The metal box, bolted securely to the keel, gleamed dully through its coating of barnacles. Maya scraped away growth with the crowbar, revealing the combination lock. For numbers, she tried obvious combinations first. Her grandmother's birthday, 1938. Nothing. Her mother's birthday. Nothing. The year the boat was purchased, 1985. Nothing. She climbed back up, frustrated, and found the journal again. Flipping through pages, looking for clues. The combination is simple. For numbers that matter most. For corners of freedom. For corners. Maya thought hard. What had mattered most to her grandmother? She tried the numbers from the journal's first entry, 0615, for June 15th. Nothing. Then inspiration struck. She tried the slip number where the boat was docked, 0047. Nothing. Wait. Her grandmother had mentioned 4 corners of freedom. The boat was 45 feet long. Patricia had been 40 when she bought it. The journal started in 1985. Maya tried 4540. Nothing. Then 4085. The year Patricia turned 40 and bought freedom. Click. The lock opened. Maya's heart hammered as she lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in multiple layers of heavy-duty plastic bags, vacuum-sealed against moisture, were stacks of documents. And beneath them, something that made Maya's breath catch. Bonds. Bearer bonds. Dozens of them, each certificate ornate and official. She pulled one out carefully, studying it in the flashlight's beam. $10,000 face value, issued in 1985, with 40 years of accumulated interest. There were others too. Stock certificates, handwritten on thick paper. Apple Computer, purchased 1982. Microsoft, purchased 1986. Amazon, purchased 1997. Companies Maya recognized even with her limited knowledge, bought when they were nothing, held for decades as they became everything. And cash. Stacks of $100 bills, vacuum-sealed, protected from moisture and time. Maya counted with shaking hands. $50,000 in cash. But it was the documents underneath that made her stop breathing entirely. A handwritten inventory list in her grandmother's meticulous script. Bearer bonds, various $340,000 face value, plus accrued interest. Estimated current value, $2.1 million. Stock certificates. Apple Inc., 500 shares, purchased $22 per share in 1982. Current value, approximately $95 million. Microsoft, 1,000 shares, purchased $21 per share in 1986. Current value, approximately $42 million. Amazon, 200 shares, purchased $18 per share in 1997. Current value, approximately $8 million. Various other holdings, estimated $3 million. Total estimated value as of 2024, $150 million. For Maya, when you find this, I started with $800 and a dream of being free. I worked 3 jobs, saved every penny, invested when others spent. The family called me poor. They pitied me. They dismissed me. Good. Let them. While they spent their inheritances and trust funds, I built this. Quietly, carefully, proving that wealth isn't about what you show, but what you grow. Use this wisely, not to show them they were wrong, though they were. Use it to build the life they said you couldn't have. Raise Sofia in freedom, not desperation. And someday, teach her what I learned, that the best revenge is building something so beautiful that their opinions become irrelevant. Maya sat in the bilge, surrounded by more money than she'd ever imagined existing, and cried. Not delicate tears, but huge, gasping sobs that echoed through the empty boat. 40 years of secrets. 40 years of her grandmother working and saving and investing while the family dismissed her as poor, as foolish, as less than. And now it was Maya's. All of it. Mommy, Sofia's voice called from above. Are you okay? Maya climbed up the ladder, her vision blurred with tears, and pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. We're okay, baby. We're more than okay. We're free. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. This fortune was real. The certificates existed. But were they still valid? Could bearer bond from 1985 actually be redeemed? Would the stock certificates be honored? Or had time and legal changes made them worthless paper? Maya needed help. Professional help. She pulled out Marcus Whitfield's card and called. Miss Torres, I hope you're calling with good news about the boat. Mr. Whitfield, I need to see you. Today, if possible. I found something in the boat, something that needs legal expertise. His tone sharpened with interest. What kind of something? The kind I can't discuss on the phone. Can you meet me? 2 hours later, Marcus sat in the Esperanza's cabin, examining documents with an expression that cycled between shock and admiration. He'd brought a colleague, Elizabeth Chun, a specialist in estate assets and securities law. This is extraordinary, Elizabeth murmured, studying a bearer bond through a magnifying glass. These were issued by the U.S. Treasury. They're absolutely redeemable, though the process will require authentication. She set it down carefully. Miss Torres, do you understand what you have here? My grandmother's secret fortune. She hid it for 40 years. She did more than hide it. She built it. These stock certificates, if authentic, represent some of the most successful investments in modern history. Elizabeth pulled out a calculator, her fingers flying. The Apple shares alone, accounting for stock splits over the years, will be worth approximately $95 million at current market value. Marcus was studying the inventory list. Patricia was brilliant. She spread her investments across multiple asset classes. Bonds for stability, stocks for growth, cash for liquidity. This is a professionally managed portfolio disguised as a grandmother's hobby. But can I access it? Maya asked, needing to know if hope was real or another cruel joke. Or are there legal problems? There will be complexity, Marcus admitted. Bearer bonds are tricky. They belong to whoever holds them, which is both good and bad. Good because there's no registration to contest. Bad because proving legitimate ownership requires documentation. Your grandmother's journal and letter will help, as will the boat's chain of title, proving you inherited it and everything in it. Elizabeth nodded. The stock certificates will need to be authenticated by the companies or their transfer agents. That process can take weeks or months. But yes, Miss Torres, if these are genuine, and I believe they are, you're looking at liquid assets worth approximately $150 million, possibly more depending on current market values. The number hit Maya like a physical force. $150 million. She couldn't even conceptualize it. That was the GDP of a small country. That was generational wealth. That was freedom beyond anything she'd ever imagined. "What do I do?" she whispered. "How do I even start?" Marcus and Elizabeth exchanged glances. First, Marcus said, "We secure everything. These documents go into a bank safety deposit box today. Second, we begin the authentication process quietly. The last thing you want is publicity before the assets are legally confirmed as yours. Third, we establish a legal structure, a trust, probably, to protect and manage the assets. And the family?" Maya's voice hardened. "Daniel and Carmen? They got their inheritances. Can they claim this too?" "Absolutely not," Elizabeth said firmly. "The will was clear. You inherited the boat and its contents. Your grandmother was specific. Whatever was in or on the Esperanza became yours upon her death. Your siblings have no legal claim. But they'll try," Maya said, knowing her family. "When they find out, they'll contest it somehow. Claim undue influence or fraud or something." Marcus smiled grimly. "Let them try. We have your grandmother's journal documenting 40 years of careful investment. We have contemporaneous records showing she purchased these assets legally with her own money. We have the boat's maintenance records proving it's been sealed since she stopped sailing 15 years ago. Any challenge will fail. However," Elizabeth added carefully, "Marcus is right about discretion. Once news breaks that you've inherited $150 million, you'll face challenges beyond legal ones. Family pressure, certainly, but also scammers, long-lost relatives, charities requesting donations, investment advisors offering schemes. Your life will change in ways you can't predict." Maya thought about that, about being visible after years of invisibility, about having money after years of having nothing, about her family's reaction when they discovered the poor, failed sister was now worth more than all of them combined. "How long before I can access any of it? I'm about to be evicted. I have $47 in my checking account. I need to survive while this processes." Marcus pulled out his checkbook. "Consider this an advance against your assets. $50,000 should cover immediate expenses while we sort out authentication." He wrote the check and handed it to her. "We'll settle the amount once the estate is liquidated." Maya stared at the check. More money than she'd earned in 2 years of brutal work. "I'll pay you back." "I know. But Maya, let me be clear. In a few months, you'll never have to pay anyone back for anything ever again. You'll be one of the wealthiest people in Massachusetts. That's going to require adjustment." That night, after depositing Marcus's check and paying her landlord enough to buy 3 months of stability, Maya sat with Sofia and tried to explain. "Remember the boat I inherited? The one that seemed worthless?" Sofia nodded, eating the first real meal they'd had in weeks. Actual groceries from a real store, not day-old bread and clearance vegetables. "Well, Abuela hid something very special in the boat. Like a treasure. And that treasure means we don't have to worry about money anymore. Like winning the lottery? Kind of. Except Abuela didn't win it. She earned it by being smart and patient and brave. Are we rich now, Mommy?" Maya hesitated. Were they? The money wasn't in her account yet. The stocks hadn't been sold. The bonds hadn't been redeemed. On paper, she was worth $150 million. In reality, she still lived in a studio apartment that smelled like mildew and worked 3 jobs, though Marcus had convinced her to quit the night shift at least. "We're going to be okay," she said finally. "Better than okay. But we have to be patient while grown-up things get sorted out. Can we get Mr. Patches fixed? His neck is really broken." Maya laughed, pulling her daughter close. "Baby, we could get you 100 Mr. Patches if you want. I just want this one. But fixed." And that, Maya thought, was the difference between her and people who'd always had money. Sofia didn't want more. She wanted what she had to be whole. The authentication process began with the bearer bonds. Elizabeth connected Maya with a specialist at the Treasury Department who examined the certificates with ultraviolet light and chemical tests. After 2 weeks of scrutiny, the verdict came back genuine. $340,000 in face value, plus 4 decades of accumulated interest at rates ranging from 8% to 12%, depending on issue date, totaling approximately $2.1 million. We can begin redemption proceedings, the specialist informed Elizabeth. The process takes 60 to 90 days, but the funds will be transferred to your designated account. The stock certificates proved more complex. Apple's transfer agent required extensive documentation proving chain of ownership. The original purchase receipt from 1982, preserved. In her grandmother's meticulous records, helped. So did Patricia's journal entries noting each purchase. But modern securities law required jumping through hoops designed to prevent fraud. The shares have split multiple times since 1982, the transfer agent explained. Your grandmother's original 500 shares became 4,000 shares after splits. At current market value of approximately $190 per share, that's $760,000. However, accounting for the DPP program where dividends were reinvested, the actual holding is closer to 5,200 shares, worth approximately $95 million. Maya had stopped being able to process the numbers. They become abstract, divorced from reality. What did $95 million even mean? She couldn't picture it, couldn't feel it, couldn't make it real in her mind. But her eviction notice had been real. Her empty refrigerator had been real. Sofia's worn shoes had been real. This money would make those problems disappear. Would make every problem she'd ever had disappear. The news leaked in March, despite everyone's best efforts at discretion. A clerk at the transfer agent's office mentioned to someone who mentioned to someone else that a cleaning lady had inherited $150 million in stock. The Boston Globe picked it up as a human interest story. Grandmother's secret fortune discovered in abandoned sailboat. They got the details wrong, the tone patronizing, but the essential facts were accurate. Maya Torres, single mother, working 3 jobs, had inherited a boat everyone thought was worthless. Inside, her grandmother had hidden a fortune built over 40 years of careful investment. The story went viral. Maya's phone exploded with calls. Reporters wanting interviews. Financial advisors offering services. Charities requesting donations. And, inevitably, family. Daniel called first. Maya, I saw the news. That's incredible. I'm so happy for you. His enthusiasm sounded practiced, calculated. Listen, I was thinking with that kind of money, you'll need proper financial management. I work with high net worth clients all the time. I could. No, Maya said simply. No, I have advisors. People Abuela trusted. But thank you for calling. She hung up before he could argue. Carmen tried a different approach, arriving at Maya's apartment with flowers and tears. I've been terrible to you, she sobbed. I'll let family politics make me cruel. Can you forgive me? Can we start over? Maya stood in the doorway, not inviting her in. You laughed when I inherited the boat. You thought it was funny that I got debt while you got millions. I was wrong. I see that now. Families should support each other. We should. You're right. Families should support each other. Where were you when I was working 3 jobs? When Sofia was sick and I couldn't afford her medicine? When we were about to be evicted? Maya's voice stayed level, calm, deadly quiet. You weren't family then. You don't get to be family now. Carmen's tears dried instantly, replaced by cold calculation. You're making a mistake. The family could contest this. Claim undue influence. Say grandmother wasn't in her right mind when she hid that money. Try it. My lawyers are ready. Maya closed the door. But the family drama was nothing compared to what came next. Uncle Roberto filed a lawsuit 3 weeks later, claiming that as executor of Patricia's estate, he had the right to inventory and distribute all assets, including those discovered post-mortem. His lawyers argued that the bearer bonds and stock certificates, while physically hidden in the boat, were technically part of Patricia's estate and should have been distributed according to the will's proportions. It's creative, Marcus admitted, reading the complaint. Completely wrong, but creative. Can they win? No. They will specifically bequeath the boat and all contents therein to you. Patricia knew exactly what she was doing. She wanted you, specifically, to inherit this fortune. But we'll need to defend the suit, which will take time and money. I have money now, Maya pointed out. The bearer bonds have been redeemed. $2.1 million sat in her new bank account, a number so large it didn't feel real. You have some money, Elizabeth corrected. The stocks are still being transferred. That process could take another 60 days, possibly longer if the lawsuit delays things. The case went to court in May. By then, Maya had hired a law firm that specialized in estate litigation. They prepared a defense that was both thorough and devastating. The courtroom was packed. The story had captured public imagination. A Cinderella tale with boats and bonds and a family fight over fortune. Reporters filled the gallery. Cameras waited outside. Judge Patricia Morrison, no relation to Maya's grandmother despite the shared first name, read through the complaint with visible skepticism. Uncle Roberto's lawyer stood. Your Honor, the deceased clearly intended for her estate to be divided among her grandchildren. The fact that she physically hid certain assets doesn't change their nature as estate property. My client, as executor, has a fiduciary duty to ensure proper distribution. Maya's lawyer, a formidable woman named Rachel Santos, rose smoothly. Your Honor, Mrs. Alvarado's will is unambiguous. Quote, to my granddaughter Maya Isabel Torres, I leave the sailboat Esperanza del Mar, currently docked at Marina Bay in Quincy, slip number 47, and all contents therein. End quote. All contents. Not some contents. Not contents except valuable things. All contents. The intent, Roberto's lawyer began. The intent is clear from Mrs. Alvarado's own words. Rachel interrupted, producing the journal. May I approach? She handed the journal to the judge, open to a marked page. Judge Morrison read aloud. September 12, 1990. Installed the safe in the bilge today. Everything I've built, everything I've saved, hidden where no one would think to look. The family thinks I'm poor, struggling, barely making it. Let them think that. The judge looked up. Mrs. Alvarado deliberately hid these assets. She deliberately allowed her family to think she had nothing. And she deliberately left everything to Maya Torres. I see no ambiguity here. But, Your Honor, Roberto's lawyer tried again. Surely the testatrix didn't intend. What Mrs. Alvarado intended is crystal clear. She intended for Maya to find what she hid. She intended for Maya to inherit it. And she intended for the rest of the family to get exactly what the will specifies. Nothing more. Judge Morrison closed the journal. The complaint is dismissed. The assets discovered in the Esperanza del Mar are the sole property of Maya Isabel Torres. Mr. Castellano, as executor, has no claim to them. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Maya's knees went weak. Rachel caught her elbow. Breathe. It's over. They could appeal. They could, but they won't win. The law is clear, the will is clear, and your grandmother's intent is documented in her own handwriting. You're safe. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Maya had prepared a brief statement with Rachel's help. My grandmother, Patricia Alvarado, was an extraordinary woman who survived being cast out by her family and built a fortune through intelligence, hard work, and careful planning. She chose to leave that fortune to me not because I deserved it more than anyone else, but because she saw her own story in mine. She wanted to give me what no one gave her, a second chance. I intend to honor her memory by using this gift wisely, by raising my daughter with the values she embodied, and by helping others whose society has dismissed the way we were both dismissed. Thank you. She ignored the shouted questions and walked to the car where Sofia waited with Elizabeth. Did we win, Mommy? Yeah, baby. We won. The stock transfer is completed in June. One morning, Maya woke to an email from her wealth management firm. Account update. Current balance $147,832,456.23. She stared at the number for a full minute. $147 million. It was real. It was hers. She was, by any definition, wealthy beyond measure. The first thing she did was cry. Not from happiness, though there was that. but from grief for all the years she'd struggled, for all the nights she'd worked herself to exhaustion, for all the times she'd felt invisible and worthless and broken. She could have had help. Her family could have helped. Society could have helped. But they hadn't because people like her, single mothers who made mistakes, weren't worth helping. Now she had the power to help herself. And others like her. The second thing she did was by the marina. Frank Morrison was in his office when Maya arrived with her lawyer. "Miss Torres, I heard about the court case. Congratulations." "Thank you, Frank. I have a business proposition. I'd like to buy Marina Bay." He blinked. "The marina? It's not for sale. Everything's for sale at the right price. You're 67, ready to retire. Your children aren't interested in running this place. I'm offering $12 million, which is triple what it's worth, in exchange for you staying on as manager for 3 years to teach me the business." Frank sat down slowly. "You're serious?" "Completely. This marina gave my grandmother freedom. I want to preserve it, improve it, and make sure other people have the same opportunity to find their escape on the water." He studied her for a long moment. "Your grandmother would be proud." "I hope so. Do we have a deal?" "We have a deal." The third thing Maya did was establish the Patricia Alvarado Foundation with an endowment of $20 million. Its mission: support single mothers trying to rebuild their lives. It provided emergency housing, childcare assistance, job training, and small business loans. The fourth thing she did was buy a house. Not a mansion, though she could afford one. A comfortable 4-bedroom colonial in a good school district with a yard where Sofia could play. It felt enormous after the studio apartment. Luxurious. Safe. The fifth thing she did was restore the Esperanza del March. She hired the best marine restoration specialists in New England. Over 6 months, they stripped the boat to bare bones and rebuilt her. New rigging, new sails, new engine. The hull was cleaned, repaired, refinished until it gleamed. The cabin was restored with period-appropriate materials but modern conveniences. The teak was refinished to honey gold. Every system was rebuilt or replaced. When the work was complete, the Esperanza del Mar looked exactly as she had in 1987 when Patricia Alvarado first sailed her in a Boston harbor. Beautiful, graceful, built for freedom. Maya learned to sail that summer. She hired an instructor and spent hours on the water, feeling the wind and understanding what her grandmother had loved about this. The simplicity of it. The boat, the wind, the water. No complications. No judgments. Just movement and possibility. One August afternoon, she took Sofia out for the first time. They motored carefully from the slip, raised the sails, and caught the wind. Sofia's face lit up with pure joy. "Mommy, we're flying." "Yeah, baby, we are." Maya thought about her grandmother doing this exact thing 40 years ago. Young, dismissed by her family, struggling to survive, but finding these moments of absolute freedom. "Thank you, abuela," Maya whispered to the wind. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for believing I was worth saving." The boat heeled slightly as the wind picked up. Sofia laughed, gripping the rail, fearless and alive. And Maya understood finally what her grandmother had been trying to give her. Not money, though that certainly helped. Not security, though that was precious. But the knowledge that she was worth choosing. That her mistakes didn't define her. That society's judgments didn't determine her value. That invisible people could become visible not by begging for attention, but by building something so beautiful that the world had no choice but to see. The lawsuits continued through the fall. Daniel and Carmen filed separately, claiming their grandmother had been mentally incompetent when she hid the assets. Both cases were dismissed with prejudice. Uncle Roberto's appeal was denied. One by one, the challenges fell away, leaving Maya's ownership undisputed. The family stopped calling after that, stopped sending flowers and apologies and requests for reconciliation. They'd shown their true faces, and Maya had the receipts. Literally, her lawyers had documented every attempt at manipulation, every threat, every scheme. She didn't hate them. Hate required energy she no longer wanted to spend on people who didn't matter. She simply stopped thinking about them, stopped giving them space in her life. Instead, she focused on the foundation. In its first year, it helped 200 families. provided 18,000 nights of emergency housing, funded 47 small businesses started by single mothers, paid for childcare that allowed 156 women to return to school or take better jobs. Maya reviewed every application personally. She saw herself in each story. The exhaustion, the desperation, the feeling that the world had decided you didn't deserve help. And she helped. Not because it made her feel good, though it did, but because someone had helped her, and the chain needed to continue. One December morning, Maya received a letter from a woman in Worcester. Her name was Jennifer, and she'd received a $15,000 emergency grant from the foundation. "I don't know if you'll ever read this," Jennifer wrote, "but I need you to know what you saved. My daughter needs surgery we couldn't afford. I was about to lose our apartment. I was working 3 jobs and falling behind anyway. Your grant meant we could stay housed while I focused on my daughter's recovery. She's doing well now. And I just got promoted at work because I wasn't so exhausted I could barely function. You gave us a chance when everyone else had given up on us. Thank you doesn't seem like enough, but thank you. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for caring. Thank you for proving that invisible people matter." Maya cried reading it, because that's exactly what her grandmother had done for her. Proved she mattered. Proved she was worth saving. Proved that society's judgments weren't the final word. That afternoon, she took the Esperanza out alone. It was cold, the water gray and choppy, but the boat handled it beautifully. Maya sailed to the spot where her grandmother had scattered her husband's ashes years ago, marked on an old chart. She stood at the helm, feeling the wind, feeling the boat respond to her touch, feeling connected to a woman who'd understood what it meant to survive when the world expected you to fail. "I hope you can see this, Abuela," Maya said to the sky, to the sea, to whatever existed beyond. "I hope you know I didn't waste it. I honored what you built. I'm teaching Sofia what you taught me, that freedom isn't about money, though money helps. It's about refusing to let anyone else define your worth." The wind picked up, filling the sails, pushing the Esperanza forward. And for a moment, Maya could have sworn she heard her grandmother's voice carried on that wind. "I always knew you'd understand, Mija. I always knew you were strong enough." Maya smiled through tears and sailed home toward a future her grandmother had bought with 40 years of secret saving, toward a life built on hope instead of desperation, toward the freedom her grandmother had promised waited at the bottom of a rusty boat, if only Maya was brave enough to look. The Boston winter settled in with a kind of cold that cut through even the thickest coat. Maya stood at the window of her new office, the one she'd established in a renovated building in Dorchester, watching snow fall over the city where she'd once been invisible. The Patricia Alvarado Foundation occupied the entire 3rd floor, 3,500 square feet of space dedicated to helping people the world had forgotten. She'd hired a staff of 12, all of them people who'd lived the struggle. Former single mothers who understood what it meant to choose between electricity and groceries. Women who'd worked 3 jobs and still fallen behind. People who knew that poverty wasn't a moral failure, but a systemic problem that required systemic solutions. Her director of operations was a woman named Shanice Williams, 43, who'd been homeless with 2 kids 5 years ago and had clawed her way back through community college and sheer determination. Her finance director was Robert Chun, whose wife had left him with 3 children and a mountain of medical debt. He'd learned accounting at night school while working as a janitor, the same job Maya had once done. They understood the mission viscerally. This wasn't charity. It was justice. Maya's phone buzzed. Marcus Whitfield calling. "Maya, we need to discuss the tax implications of your charitable giving. You've donated $25 million in your first year. That's extraordinary, but we need to structure it properly." "I'm meeting my obligations," Maya said, watching the snow. "The foundation is registered properly. We're following all the regulations." "You are. But Maya, at this rate, you'll have given away half your fortune in 5 years." "I'm not saying don't give. I'm saying let's make sure you're protected. Set up a donor-advised fund. Create a more formal structure that allows for sustained giving over decades rather than years." Maya considered this. She'd been operating on instinct, responding to applications that broke her heart, saying yes to every worthy request. But Marcus was right. Strategic giving would help more people in the long run than emotional giving. Set up a meeting with Elizabeth and your tax people. Let's create a plan. Good. Also, there's another matter. Your family has been quiet lately, but Daniel just filed articles of incorporation for something called the Alvarado Family Trust. He's claiming it's to preserve your grandmother's legacy. Maya's jaw tightened. What does that mean? I'm not sure yet, but I don't trust it. I'm having my investigator look into it. After hanging up, Maya turned to find Sofia in the doorway. Her daughter was 7 now, taller, more confident, attending a private school where she thrived. But she still carried Mr. Patches, now professionally restored by a teddy bear hospital that charged $200 for the service. Mommy, can we go see the boat? I want to show Mr. Patches where the treasure was. Maya smiled. It's pretty cold for sailing, baby. We don't have to sail. Just visit. Please. How could she refuse? 20 minutes later, they were at Marina Bay, now officially renamed Alvarado Marina. The changes Maya had implemented were already visible. Fresh paint on the buildings, new docks being installed, a community sailing program offering free lessons to underprivileged kids. Frank Morrison met them at the office, grinning. Miss Torres and Miss Sofia, come and check on the old girl. Sofia wants to show Mr. Patches the boat. Well, let's make that happen. They walked to slip 47, where the Esperanza gleamed even in winter light. Maya had kept her here, in the slip where her grandmother had docked for 40 years. It felt right. She unlocked the cabin, and they descended into the warmth. Maya had installed a small heating system that kept the interior comfortable even in winter. The cabin smelled of teak oil and clean canvas now, nothing like the mildew and decay of a year ago. Sofia sat on one of the berths, holding Mr. Patches up to sea. This is where Abuela Patricia hid the treasure, right down there in the bilge. And Mommy found it, and now we help lots of people. Maya's throat tightened. Her daughter understood. Really understood. Do you think Abuela is proud of us? Sofia asked. I know she is, baby. When I grow up, I want to help people too. Like you do. Maya pulled her daughter close. You already do, sweetheart. Every day you show kindness to others. You help. You don't need money to make a difference. But money certainly made it easier, Maya thought. The foundation had just approved a $50,000 grant to a women's shelter that was about to close. Had funded a scholarship program for single mothers attending community college. Had paid for emergency dental work for a woman who couldn't smile at job interviews because of broken teeth. Each grant felt like a small redemption, a way of reaching back through time and helping the version of herself that had struggled alone. That evening, back at their house, Maya received an email from the investigator Marcus had hired. The subject line read, Alvarado Family Trust Findings. She opened it with growing dread. Ms. Torres, I've completed preliminary research into the Alvarado Family Trust established by Daniel Castellano. The trust filing claims it was created to preserve and protect the legacy and assets of Patricia Maria Alvarado for the benefit of her descendants. More concerning, Daniel has been approaching Patricia's former friends and associates, suggesting that you manipulated her into hiding assets specifically for you. He's building a narrative that the bearer bonds and stocks were actually part of a larger estate that should have been divided among all grandchildren. He's also retained a forensic accountant who's examining Patricia's financial record from 1985 to 2024, looking for evidence of what he calls financial elder abuse. This appears to be groundwork for another lawsuit, though no filing has been made yet. I recommend we continue monitoring the situation. Maya forwarded the email to Marcus and Elizabeth, then sat staring at her computer screen. They weren't going to stop. Daniel and Carmen and Roberto. They would keep coming, keep trying, keep fighting for money they believed they deserved simply because they existed. Part of her wanted to give it to them. Just write checks for $10 million each and make them go away. But she knew that wouldn't work. It would never be enough. And more importantly, it would dishonor what her grandmother had built. Patricia hadn't saved and invested for 40 years, so her family could have more. She'd done it to prove something. To prove that the woman they dismissed could build more than they ever would. to prove that worth wasn't determined by their approval. Maya wouldn't let them steal that victory. Her phone rang. "Marcus, I saw the email. We need to be proactive. I'm recommending we file a restraining order against Daniel, preventing him from harassing Patricia's former associates. And I want to depose him and Carmen under oath about their previous lawsuit. Put them on record, making claims we can later disprove. Will that stop them? Nothing will stop them except running out of money to pay lawyers. But we can make it expensive enough that they think twice." The legal battle intensified through January. Daniel's new lawsuit claimed that Patricia had suffered from diminished mental capacity starting in 2010, 15 years before her death. He produced a doctor's note from a routine checkup where Patricia had mentioned occasional forgetfulness. "Everyone over 70 is occasionally forgetful," Elizabeth scoffed, reading the complaint. This is absurd, but it still required a response. Still required hours of legal work. Still required Maya to relive her grandmother's final years, to prove that a woman who successfully managed a $150 million portfolio until weeks before her death was mentally competent. They assembled evidence. Patricia's investment records showing sophisticated trades executed until 2024. Her journal entries, lucid and detailed until the end. Testimony from her doctors confirming she was mentally sharp. Even her final letter to Maya, written 6 months before her death, demonstrated clear thinking and intent. The case went before Judge Morrison again in February. She was visibly annoyed. "Mr. Castellano, you're before this court for the third time with a third different legal theory about why you should have access to your grandmother's money. The first two were dismissed. What makes you think the third will fare better?" Daniel's new lawyer, an expensive sharp from New York named Preston Hayes, stood smoothly. "Your Honor, new evidence has emerged suggesting Mrs. Alvarado's mental decline began earlier than previously understood. A pattern of forgetfulness, confusion about dates, difficulty managing complex tasks. And yet, Judge Morrison said drily, she somehow managed to execute sophisticated stock trades worth millions of dollars during this period of alleged confusion. We believe someone else was executing those trades. Possibly Maya, Torres herself, establishing a pattern of control over her grandmother's assets." Maya's lawyer Rachel was on her feet. "That's a lie and Mr. Hayes knows it. Maya Torres didn't even know her grandmother owned these assets until after her death. She had zero access to Patricia's accounts, zero knowledge of her investments, zero contact with her during the final decade of her life." "Can you prove that?" Preston challenged. "Can you prove she did?" Rachel shot back. "You're the one making wild accusations. Burden of proof is on you." Preston pulled out bank records. These statements from Patricia Alvarado's investment accounts show regular deposits of $2,000 monthly starting in 2020. "We believe Maya Torres was depositing funds and claiming they came from Patricia, artificially inflating the estate." Maya's blood ran cold. She'd never deposited anything into her grandmother's accounts. She hadn't even known they existed. But Rachel was already speaking. "Your Honor, may I approach?" She handed documents to the judge. "These are Patricia Alvarado's Social Security statements showing monthly benefit deposits of exactly $2,000 starting in 2020. Not mysterious deposits from Maya Torres, but Patricia's own government benefits being direct deposited into her investment account. This is trivially easy to verify." Preston's confidence faltered. Even so, nothing," Judge Morrison interrupted. "Mr. Hayes, you brought me conspiracy theories and sloppy research. Mrs. Alvarado's Social Security deposits are not evidence of fraud. Her occasional forgetfulness at age 87 is not evidence of incompetence. And your client's third attempt to steal his grandmother's money is not getting any more legitimate with repetition." She looked at Daniel with barely concealed contempt. "Young man, your grandmother left you $900,000. That's more than most people see in a lifetime. She left your sister over $1 million. She was generous to you both. The fact that she chose to leave more to someone else is a right. Your continued harassment of your sister and this court is becoming actionable. Your Honor, I'm issuing an order. Daniel Castellano, Carmen Castellano, and Roberto Castellano are barred from filing any further litigation regarding Patricia Alvarado's estate without first obtaining permission from this court and demonstrating substantial new evidence. Any violation will result in sanctions including, but not limited to, fines and contempt charges. The current complaint is dismissed with prejudice. We're done here. The gavel came down with finality. Outside, Preston Hayes tried to spin it to the reporters. We'll appeal. We'll take this too. No, you won't, Daniel said quietly. His face was ashen. It's over. Carmen was crying, her makeup running. How can you just give up? That's our money. It's not our money. Daniel's voice cracked. It was never our money. It was grandmother's money, and she gave it to Maya. I'm done fighting. I'm done wasting money on lawyers. I'm done with all of this. He walked away, leaving Carmen and Preston standing in the cold. Maya watched from a distance. She felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just exhaustion and sadness that it had come to this. That greed had destroyed what was left of their family. Rachel touched her arm. You okay? Yeah, just tired of fighting. It's over now. Really over. The sanctions order means they can't come back without serious consequences. Maya nodded, but she knew better. Money changed everything, including family. The fact that she had $150 million and they had less would always be a wound that wouldn't heal. The foundation's second year brought expansion. Maya opened satellite offices in Worcester, Springfield, and Providence. Each office was staffed by people who'd lived the struggle, who understood what it meant to need help and find none. The programs grew too. Emergency housing expanded to serve 500 families annually. The Child Care Assistance Program helped 300 single mothers afford daycare while they worked or studied. The Small Business Loan Program funded 75 startups, most of them successful. Maya still reviewed every application personally. It was time-consuming, emotionally draining, but necessary. She needed to stay connected to the struggle, to remember where she'd come from. One application stood out. A woman named Andrea Lopez, 31, with 2 kids. She'd been working as a night janitor, same as Maya had. She was asking for $5,000 to help with rent while she attended nursing school. Maya called her directly. Ms. Lopez? This is Maya Torres from the foundation. Silence. Then a shaky voice. Ms. Torres. Oh my God. I didn't think. I hoped, but I didn't think you'd actually call. I read your application. You're working nights and attending school during the day. Yes, ma'am. It's hard, but I need to do this. My kids deserve better than watching their mom clean toilets forever. Maya's throat tightened. That could have been her talking. Would have been her, if not for a grandmother who saw past the struggle to the potential underneath. Andrea, we're approving your grant. $5,000 for rent. But I want to offer something else too. Full tuition for nursing school. Books, supplies, whatever you need. Silence again. Then sobbing. Ms. Torres, I can't. That's too much. I can't accept. You can and you will. Because someone did the same for me. Someone saw past what I was to what I could become. Now I'm seeing it in you. Maya's voice was firm. You're going to finish nursing school. You're going to build a career. And someday, when you're successful, you're going to help someone else. That's how this works. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept. Say you'll work hard. Say you'll remember this moment when you have the chance to help someone else. I will. I promise. Thank you. Thank you so much. After hanging up, Maya sat in her office and cried. Because this was why the money mattered. Not the houses or cars or luxury she could now afford. But this. The ability to change lives the way hers had been changed. Sofia was 8 now, thriving in school, making friends, taking piano lessons and swimming, and doing all the things Maya had never been able to afford. She was kind, thoughtful, generous with her allowance to classmates who had less. One evening, Maya found her at the kitchen table with a notebook. What are you working on, baby? A plan for when I grow up and run the foundation. Maya sat down, surprised. You want to run the foundation? Of course. You're teaching me how to help people. When I'm big enough, I'll take over and you can rest. Maya pulled her daughter close, overwhelmed with love. You don't have to do that. You can be anything you want. I want to be like you and Abuela Patricia. I want to help people who need it. And Maya understood then what her grandmother had really given her. Not just money, though that mattered, but a legacy, a purpose, a way of being in the world that valued helping over having. That spring, Maya commissioned a sculpture for the marina. It depicted a woman at a ship's wheel, face turned toward the horizon, expression determined and free. The plaque read, Patricia Maria Alvarado, 1938 to 2025, she proved that freedom is built, not given. That worth is earned, not inherited. That the best revenge is a life well lived. They unveiled it on what would have been Patricia's 87th birthday. The marina was crowded with people whose lives had been touched by the foundation. Single mothers who'd received grants. Kids who'd learned to sail through the free program. Families who'd been housed when they had nowhere else to go. Frank Morrison gave a speech about the woman he'd known for 40 years. Patricia Alvarado sailed into this marina in 1985 in a boat she could barely afford. She was alone, dismissed by her family, starting over at an age when most people stopped trying. But she never gave up. She built something extraordinary. And now her granddaughter is honoring that legacy by helping others build their own. Maya spoke last. My grandmother left me more than money. She left me proof that invisible people matter, that dismissed dreams can come true, that one person's determination can ripple outward and change the world. I'm standing here today because she refused to let her family's judgment define her, because she believed in building rather than breaking, because she knew that true wealth isn't what you keep, but what you give. She looked at the sculpture, at her grandmother's bronze face turned toward possibilities. Thank you, Abuela, for seeing me, for choosing me, for teaching me that freedom is worth fighting for. The crowd applauded. Sofia held her hand tight, and Maya felt, for the first time since all this began, that she'd finally understood the gift her grandmother had given her. It wasn't the $150 million. That was just a tool. The real gift was permission. Permission to believe she was worth saving. Permission to build something beautiful from broken pieces. Permission to prove that society's judgments weren't the final word on anyone's worth. That evening, Maya took the Esperanza out alone. She sailed to the spot where her grandmother had scattered her husband's ashes, where she'd whispered her thanks before. The sunset painted the water gold and crimson. Gulls wheeled overhead. The wind filled the sails with a sound like breathing. Maya stood at the helm and spoke to the woman who'd changed everything. I hope you can see what you started, Abuela. The foundation helped 847 families last year. We're expanding to 5 cities next year. The marina is thriving. Sofia is incredible. And I'm finally understanding what you meant about freedom. She paused, feeling the boat respond to her touch, feeling connected to something larger than herself. It's not about money. It's about choice, about having the resources to choose kindness over survival, to choose helping others over just getting by, to choose building something that matters over just existing. The wind picked up. The Esperanza heeled slightly, cutting through waves with the grace she was built for. I'm choosing to honor what you built, to multiply it, to make sure other people get the chances we didn't have. That's what this money is for. That's what your life was for. Maya sailed until the stars came out, until the city lights glittered like promises on the horizon. And she knew, bone deep certain, that somewhere her grandmother was watching. Proud, satisfied, free. The rusty boat everyone had laughed had held $150 million in secrets. But more valuable than any of that was the lesson contained in those secrets. That worth comes from within, that society's judgments are temporary, and that building something beautiful is the best possible revenge. Maya sailed home through the dark, guided by stars and certainty and the legacy of a woman who refused to stay invisible. The Foundation's 3rd year brought challenges Maya hadn't anticipated. Success attracted attention, and not all of it was welcome. A journalist from the Boston Herald published an investigative piece titled "The Janitor Who Became a Philanthropist," examining the Alvarado fortune. The article questioned everything. Where had Patricia really gotten her money? Had she acquired it legally? Were the stock certificates authentic or elaborate forgeries? Was Maya Torres actually a sophisticated con artist who'd manipulated an elderly woman? The piece was full of insinuations wrapped in careful language that avoided outright libel. Questions remain, and sources suggest, and critics wonder, filled every paragraph, creating doubt without making provable claims. Maya read it in her office, hands shaking with rage and hurt. After everything they'd accomplished, after helping hundreds of families, someone was trying to tear it all down with conspiracy theories and manufactured suspicion. Rachel Santos was already on the phone. I saw it. It's garbage journalism, but we need to respond. How? If we ignore it, people think it's true. If we respond, we give it legitimacy. We respond with facts. We release Patricia's investment records, authenticated by independent auditors. We show the paper trail going back 40 years. We prove, beyond any doubt, that every penny was earned legally and invested wisely. That feels like letting them win. Like I have to constantly prove I deserve what I inherited. Rachel's voice softened. Maya, you're a woman who went from cleaning toilets to managing a $150 million fortune in less than 3 years. That makes people uncomfortable. It challenges their worldview about how the world works, about who deserves wealth. They need you to be a fraud because the alternative, that you're exactly what you appear to be, is too threatening. Maya thought about that, about how her existence challenged narratives. Poor people were supposed to stay poor. Single mothers were supposed to struggle. Women who made mistakes were supposed to pay for them forever. Her success violated all those rules. Set up a press conference, she said finally. We'll release everything. Complete transparency. Let them examine every detail. We have nothing to hide. The press conference took place at the foundation headquarters. Maya stood at a podium surrounded by documents, financial experts, and her legal team. Reporters packed the room, cameras rolling, recorders ready to capture any mistake. Maya had dressed carefully. Not too wealthy, which would seem tone-deaf. Not too casual, which would seem unprofessional. A simple navy suit, her grandmother's pearl earrings, her hair pulled back in a professional style that still felt like herself. Thank you for coming, she began, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. I'm here to address the questions raised by the Herald's article and to provide complete transparency about my grandmother's estate and the Foundation's operations. She nodded to Elizabeth Chun, who distributed binders to each reporter. These documents contain Patricia Alvarado's complete investment history from 1985 to 2024. Every stock purchase, every bond acquisition, every transaction, all authenticated by Morrison & Associates, an independent auditing firm with no connection to me or my family. Elizabeth stepped forward. I've personally reviewed every document. Patricia Alvarado began investing in 1985 with $800 in savings. Over 40 years, through careful research and disciplined saving, she built that $800 into $150 million. There is no mystery here, no secret source of income, no illegality, just patience, intelligence, and compound interest. Maya continued, my grandmother hid her wealth from her family because they had rejected her from marrying someone they disapproved of. She watched them dismiss her as poor and struggling. She let them believe that because it gave her freedom to build something extraordinary without their interference or judgment. A reporter raised her hand. Ms. Torres, critics say it's suspicious that you, who had no relationship with your grandmother, inherited everything while her other grandchildren received comparatively little. How do you respond? My grandmother explained her reasoning in her own words. Maya held up Patricia's journal. She wrote, Maya reminds me of myself at her age. Cast out by family, struggling alone, working multiple jobs, raising a child without support. I'm giving her what no one gave me, a second chance. She saw her story in mine. She wanted to break the cycle of judgment and rejection. But isn't it convenient, another reporter pressed, that you discovered this fortune? That you knew exactly where to look? I didn't know where to look. I didn't even know the fortune existed. My grandmother left me a letter telling me to check the bilge. I followed her instructions and found what she'd hidden there for 40 years. Maya's voice hardened. I understand why some people find this story uncomfortable. It doesn't fit neat narratives about poverty and wealth. But discomfort doesn't equal fraud. What about accusations that you're using the foundation to launder money? Maya had been expecting this. The foundation's finances are audited quarterly by external auditors. Our tax returns are public record. Every grant is documented. Every recipient verified. We welcome scrutiny. In fact, I'm announcing today that we're establishing an independent oversight board composed of community leaders, nonprofit experts, and financial professionals who will review our operations and publish annual reports. She paused, looking directly at the cameras. I could have taken this money and disappeared, bought mansions and yachts, and lived a life of luxury. Instead, I'm using it to help people who remind me of who I was 3 years ago. People working multiple jobs and still falling behind. People society has written off as not worth helping. If that makes some people suspicious, I can't control that. But I won't apologize for it. The questions continued for another hour. Maya answered each one calmly, supported by documentation and expert testimony. By the time it ended, the narrative had shifted. The conspiracy theories looked thin and desperate next to mountains of authenticated evidence. The Herald published a follow-up piece the next day, notably less sensational. Torres provides extensive documentation of Alvarado fortune, read the headline. The article grudgingly acknowledged that everything appeared legitimate, though it still managed to question whether someone with Maya's background could successfully manage such wealth. They'll never fully accept you, Shanice said, reading the article in Maya's office. You're too much of a challenge to their assumptions. I don't need them to accept me. I need them to leave me alone so I can do the work. But the controversy had consequences. Several large donors who'd been considering major gifts to the foundation withdrew their pledges. Conservative media outlets ran segments questioning whether taxpayer dollars should support an organization run by a former janitor with no business experience. Online trolls flooded the foundation's social media with attacks, ranging from questioning Maya's intelligence to making racist assumptions about how she'd really acquire the money. Sofia saw some of it. She came home from school one day, her face tight with the expression Maya recognized as try not to cry. What happened, baby? Some kids said you stole the money, that we're not really supposed to be rich, that we're pretending to be something we're not. Maya pulled her daughter close, fury and heartbreak warring in her chest. Do you believe that? No. But Mommy, why do people say mean things about us? We're trying to help people. Because we make them uncomfortable, sweetheart. We don't fit into the boxes they've created for who deserves what. It didn't fit either, and people dismissed her whole life. But she proved them wrong by building something extraordinary. We're going to do the same. How? By continuing the work. By helping more people. By showing that worth isn't determined by where you start, but by what you do with what you're given. Sofia was quiet for a moment. I hate that people are mean to you. I know, baby. I hate it too. But their meanness doesn't change the truth. And the truth is that we're doing good work that matters. That's enough. The following month brought vindication from an unexpected source. The New York Times published a feature story titled The Alvarado Foundation, a case study in effective philanthropy. The piece examined the foundation's operations in detail, interviewing recipients, analyzing outcomes, comparing their approach to traditional charitable organizations. The conclusions were striking. The foundation's success rate, measured by how many recipients achieved financial stability within 2 years, was 73%. The national average for similar programs was 31%. Their administrative costs were 12% of budget, compared to an industry average of 25%. And recipient satisfaction ratings were 94%, with many describing the foundation as life-changing. The article profiled several families the foundation had helped. Andrea Lopez, the nursing student Maya had personally assisted, had graduated with honors and was now working in a pediatric ICU, making $75,000 a year. She'd paid off her debts, moved her family into a safe neighborhood, and started a small scholarship fund for other single mothers pursuing nursing degrees. Maya Torres didn't just give me money, Andrea was quoted saying. She gave me proof that someone believed I was worth investing in. That changed everything. Not just my finances, but my sense of what was possible. Another recipient, a woman named Keisha Johnson, had used a $25,000 small business loan to start a catering company. 3 years later, she employed 12 people, all single mothers, and generated $800,000 in annual revenue. The foundation didn't just fund my business, Keisha explained. They provided mentorship, connected me with other entrepreneurs, helped me navigate licensing and permits. They invested in my success, not just my idea. The article's author, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist named Margaret Sullivan, concluded, "The Alvarado Foundation represents a new model of philanthropy, one rooted in lived experience rather than abstract theory. Maya Torres understands poverty not as an academic concept, but as a lived reality. This understanding informs every aspect of the Foundation's work, resulting in programs that actually address the root causes of financial instability rather than just treating symptoms." Maya cried reading it. Not from relief, though that was there, but from validation. Someone with credibility and reach had looked at their work and seen its value, had seen past the sensational story of the inheritance to the meaningful work being done with it. The Times piece changed the conversation. Other major publications followed with their own investigations, most reaching similar conclusions. The foundation was legitimate, effective, and transformative. Maya's background wasn't a liability, but an asset, giving her insights that traditionally educated philanthropists lacked. Donations increased. Major foundations that had been skeptical began reaching out about partnerships. Universities invited Maya to speak about her approach to poverty alleviation. The foundation's budget grew from $25 million annually to $45 million, allowing expansion into 3 more cities. But success brought new challenges. Managing a rapidly growing organization required skills Maya was still developing. She hired consultants, took courses in nonprofit management, learned about organizational development and strategic planning. The work was exhausting, requiring her to grow in ways she'd never anticipated. One evening, she sat in her office long after everyone else had gone home, staring at strategic plans and budget projections that might as well have been written in another language. Her phone rang. Marcus Whitfield. "Maya, I'm worried about you. Shanice says you're working 70-hour weeks again. There's so much to do. We're expanding to Atlanta and Detroit. We need to hire 20 new staff members. The board wants a 5-year strategic plan by next month. And you're one person. You can't do everything. I have to. This is my responsibility. My grandmother's legacy." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Maya, can I tell you something about your grandmother? Something I learned in 40 years of knowing her." Of course. Patricia understood that building something lasting meant building systems, not just working harder. She didn't micromanage her investments. She researched thoroughly, made decisions carefully, then trusted the process. She knew when to step back and let things grow without constant intervention. But what if I step back and everything falls apart? Then you haven't built it properly. Real sustainability means the organization can function without you being involved in every decision. You need to delegate, to trust the people you've hired, to focus on vision and strategy rather than daily operations. Maya knew he was right, but letting go felt like failure, like she wasn't working hard enough to honor the gift she'd been given. I don't know how to do that. How to trust that it will be okay if I'm not controlling everything. Start small. Pick one area and hand it off completely. See what happens. I think you'll be surprised. Maya chose grant review. It was the one task she'd insisted on doing personally, reading every application, making every decision. But it was also consuming 30 hours a week, time she needed for strategic planning and organizational development. She called a meeting with her program directors. "I'm changing how we handle grant applications. Each of you will have authority to approve grants up to $25,000 in your area of expertise. For larger amounts, you'll present recommendations to the leadership team, but the decision will be collaborative, not just mine." Her housing director, a man named James Rodriguez who'd been homeless for 2 years before rebuilding his life, looked concerned. "Are you sure? You've always insisted on personal review." "I'm sure. You all understand this work as well as I do. Some of you better. You've lived it. You know what makes the difference? I need to trust that. It was terrifying at first. Maya kept catching herself wanting to review every decision, to question every approval. But slowly, she learned to let go. And the foundation didn't collapse. In fact, it thrived. The program directors, empowered to make decisions, developed innovative approaches Maya never would have thought of. James created a rapid response fund that could get emergency money to families within 24 hours instead of the usual 2-week review process. Shanice developed a peer mentorship program where past recipients helped new applicants navigate the system. Robert established partnerships with local banks to provide financial literacy training alongside grants. The foundation became stronger, more responsive, more effective, and Maya, freed from micromanaging, could focus on bigger picture work. She also began to address something she'd been avoiding: her own healing. 3 years of constant work, legal battles, and public scrutiny had taken a toll. She was wealthy now, yes. Successful, certainly. But she still woke at 3 a.m. with anxiety, still felt the phantom exhaustion of working 3 jobs, still questioned whether she deserved any of this. She started therapy, something she'd never been able to afford before. Her therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, specialized in trauma and sudden wealth syndrome, a real psychological condition affecting people who came into money unexpectedly. You're experiencing a form of survivor's guilt, Dr. Kim explained in one session. You escaped poverty while millions of others didn't. That creates psychological conflict. But I'm helping others escape too. The foundation is important and valuable work, but it doesn't erase the randomness of your good fortune. You worked just as hard before inheriting as you do now. So did millions of other single mothers. You happen to have a grandmother who saw you and had resources to help. That's not fair. The world isn't fair, and you're struggling to reconcile that. Maya felt tears coming. I think about the woman I was 3 years ago, facing eviction, working myself to death, and I wonder what the difference was. Why did I deserve to be saved when so many others don't? You didn't deserve it more than anyone else. You just got it. The question isn't why you, but what you do with it. And you're already answering that question through your work. Then why do I still feel guilty? Because you're human. Because you remember what it felt like to be invisible and desperate. Because you know the only difference between you and the people you help is luck and circumstance. That awareness is actually what makes you effective. The day you forget that is the day you should stop doing this work. The therapy helped. Slowly, Maya began to accept that she could be both grateful for her good fortune and angry about the injustice that made it necessary. Could both enjoy her comfortable life and remember her struggle. Could be wealthy and still understand poverty in ways that shaped her worldview. She also began to build a life beyond work. She'd been so focused on the foundation, on honoring her grandmother's legacy, that she'd neglected herself. Now, she made time for sailing, for reading, for simply being with Sofia without the weight of the world on her shoulders. One Saturday in June, she took Sofia and Mr. Patches out on the Esperanza. They sailed to Provincetown, just as Patricia had done decades before. The wind was perfect, the water sparkling, the sky that impossible blue that only happens in summer. Sofia sat at the bow, face turned toward the sun, laughing as spray caught her. She was 10 now, confident and kind, with her mother's determination and her great-grandmother's wisdom. "Mommy, do you think Abuela Patricia ever sailed here?" "I know she did. She wrote about it in her journal. Said it was one of her favorite trips. I can see why. It's perfect." Maya watched her daughter, this miracle child who'd survived poverty and uncertainty and was now thriving, who would grow up knowing she was wanted, valued, capable of anything, who would never have to choose between electricity and groceries, never have to work 3 jobs just to survive, never have to feel invisible or worthless. That was Patricia's real gift. Not the money itself, but the freedom it bought. The chance to raise Sofia without desperation. To give her daughter opportunities Maya had never had. To break the cycle of poverty that trapped generations. They anchored in Provincetown Harbor and rowed the dinghy to shore. The town was crowded with summer tourists, galleries and restaurants and shops selling everything from fine art to cheap souvenirs. They walked Commercial Street, eating ice cream, browsing galleries, being normal in a way Maya had never been able to afford before. In a small gallery, Sofia stopped in front of a painting. It showed a woman alone on a sailboat, silhouetted against the sunset, face turned toward the horizon. Something about it captured Patricia perfectly, the solitude and strength and yearning for freedom. "Can we buy it?" Sofia asked. "For the foundation office?" Maya checked the price. $3,500. A year ago, she would have considered that outrageous. Now, it was simply a number. She could afford it without thinking, without calculating, without sacrifice. "Yes, we can." They arranged shipping, then continued their walk. As they passed a small park, Maya noticed a woman sitting on a bench with two children. The woman's face had that expression Maya recognized, the exhausted desperation of someone barely holding on. The children wore clothes that didn't quite fit, shoes held together with duct tape. Maya saw herself in that woman, saw the 3 years ago version who'd counted pennies for groceries and wondered how she'd survive another day. She approached carefully. "Excuse me, I don't mean to intrude, but I run a foundation that helps families. If you're interested, I'd like to give you our information." The woman looked up, suspicious and hopeful in equal measure. "What kind of foundation?" "We help single mothers with housing, childcare, education costs. Whatever barriers you're facing to building a stable life." "I don't need charity," the woman said, pride evident even through exhaustion. "It's not charity. It's investment. Someone invested in me when I needed it. Now I invest in others. No judgment, no strings. Just support while you build something better." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I'm trying so hard. I work 2 jobs, but it's never enough. Rent keeps going up. The kids need things. I'm falling further behind no matter how hard I work." Maya knelt down to the woman's level. "I know. I've been exactly where you are, working yourself to death and still drowning. It's not your fault. The system is broken, but there are ways through it, and I can help you find them." She pulled out a foundation business card, writing her personal cell number on the back. "Call this number Monday. Ask for Shanice Williams. Tell her Maya sent you. We'll figure out what you need and how to get you there." The woman clutched the card like a lifeline. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone did it for me. Because you deserve help. Because your kids deserve to see their mother thrive instead of just survive. Because it's the right thing to do." Walking away, Sofia took her hand. "That was nice, Mommy. That was necessary, baby. That's why we have the money. Not for galleries and ice cream, though those are nice, but for moments like that, for being able to help when help is needed." They sailed back to Boston as the sun set, painting the sky in colors that seemed impossible. Sofia fell asleep in the cabin, exhausted from sun and wind and adventure. Maya stood at the helm alone, guiding the Esperanza through familiar waters. She thought about the woman in Provincetown, wondered what her story was, what dreams she deferred, what potential was being crushed by poverty and exhaustion. Wondered if their encounter would be the turning point, the moment when her life changed direction. The foundation would help her. They'd assess her needs, create a plan, provide resources. Maybe she'd stabilize her housing. Maybe she'd go back to school. Maybe she'd start a business. Maybe she'd simply have the breathing room to be present with her children instead of constantly stressed about survival. Whatever happened, she'd know someone had seen her, had valued her enough to help, had believed she was worth investing in. That's what Patricia had given Maya. Not just money, but the knowledge that she mattered, that invisible people could become visible, that dismissed dreams could come true, that society's judgments weren't the final word on anyone's worth or potential. And now Maya was passing that gift forward, multiplying it, proving that one person's courage could ripple outward and change the world. The Foundation's 5th year brought an opportunity that would define its future. The MacArthur Foundation, one of the largest philanthropic organizations in the world, approached Maya about a partnership. They wanted to study the Alvarado Foundation's model and potentially replicate it nationally. "Your approach is unique," the MacArthur representative explained in a video call. "Most poverty programs are designed by people who've studied poverty academically, but never lived it. Your programs are designed by people with lived experience. The results speak for themselves. We'd like to help you scale this model to 50 cities over 10 years. Maya was stunned. That would require? I can't even imagine the resources. We're prepared to commit $500 million over 10 years, contingent on you maintaining operational control and the current program model. We don't want to change what works. We want to expand it. After the call, Maya sat in her office trying to process the magnitude. 50 cities, thousands of families, a national model for poverty alleviation built on lived experience rather than academic theory. She called an emergency board meeting. The discussion was intense. This is an incredible opportunity, one board member argued. We could help exponentially more people. But at what cost? Another countered. Rapid expansion could dilute our effectiveness, could turn us into another bureaucratic organization that loses sight of the mission. Shanice had the strongest reaction. Maya, you built this foundation on the principle of personal connection. You review stories, you understand struggles, you make decisions based on lived experience. How do you maintain that across 50 cities? I don't, Maya admitted. I can't be personally involved in every decision in 50 cities, but I can build systems that embody our values, can hire people who understand the struggle, can create training programs that pass on not just procedures, but philosophy. That's a huge risk. So is saying no. Think about all the women right now, tonight, working 3 jobs and falling behind, facing eviction, choosing between food and medicine. If we can help them, if we have the resources and the model and the opportunity, don't we have an obligation to try? The room was quiet. Finally, Robert spoke. Patricia took risks. She invested in Apple when it was just a garage startup. She bought Amazon stock when people thought online retail was a fad. She understood that playing it safe meant missing opportunities. If we're really honoring her legacy, we take the risk. The vote was unanimous. They'd accept the MacArthur partnership. The expansion began in year 6. Maya hired a national director, a woman named Dr. Jennifer Martinez who'd grown up in poverty, earned a PhD in social work, and spent 20 years working in community development. Together, they created a training program for regional directors that emphasized lived experience over credentials. I don't care if you have an MBA, Maya told a room full of new hires. I care if you've been hungry, if you've had to choose between rent and food, if you've worked yourself to exhaustion and still fallen behind. That's the expertise that matters here. That's what allows you to see people instead of cases, humans instead of statistics. The regional offices open one by one. Detroit, Atlanta, Phoenix, Seattle, each staffed with people who understood struggle personally, each designed to address local needs while maintaining core principles. The model worked. By the end of year 7, the expanded foundation was helping 15,000 families annually. Success rates remained high, over 70%. Administrative costs stayed below 15%. And the stories kept coming, each one a life transformed. A single father in Detroit who'd been homeless with 3 kids received emergency housing and job training. 2 years later, he was a certified electrician making $65,000 a year, living in a house he'd purchased, coaching his kids' soccer team. A grandmother in Phoenix, raising her grandchildren after her daughter's death, received childcare assistance and a small business loan. She started a daycare center that now served 30 families, many of them also grandparents raising grandchildren. A young mother in Seattle with disabilities that prevented traditional employment received funding for assistive technology and remote work training. She built a successful freelance graphic design business, earning enough to support herself and her 2 children while working from home. Each story was a victory. Each life changed was proof that the model worked, that investing in people rather than managing poverty was the right approach. But success brought scrutiny. Conservative politicians began attacking the foundation as enabling dependency and rewarding failure. They proposed legislation that would limit tax deductions for donations to organizations like the Alvarado Foundation, claiming they promoted welfare culture. Maya found herself dragged into political battles she'd never wanted to fight. She testified before congressional committees, appeared on news programs, wrote op-eds defending the foundation's work. "We don't enable dependency," she said in one particularly contentious hearing. "We enable independence. We provide the resources people need to build stable lives, to get education, start businesses, support their families. That's not dependency. That's investment." A senator from Texas challenged her. "Ms. Torres, isn't it true that many of your recipients continue receiving assistance for years?" "Some do, yes. Because poverty isn't solved in 6 months or a year. It's a complex problem that requires sustained support. But our 3-year success rate is 73%. That means 3 out of 4 families we help achieve financial stability within 3 years and don't return for additional assistance. Compare that to traditional welfare programs with 30% success rates. But you're using private money to essentially create a parallel welfare state. I'm using private money to help people the traditional welfare state has failed. People who work full-time and still can't afford housing. Who want to better themselves but can't afford education. Who have skills and drive but need temporary support to build stability. That's not a welfare state. That's a functioning social safety net." The political attacks continued, but didn't substantially impact the foundation's work. Donations remained strong. The MacArthur Partnership held firm, and the expansion continued. By year 8, the foundation operated in 37 cities across 23 states. The annual budget had grown to $120 million, helping over 25,000 families annually. Maya had become a nationally recognized figure, invited to speak at conferences, consulted by policymakers, featured in documentaries about poverty and philanthropy. But the work was exhausting. Managing a national organization required constant travel, endless meetings, political navigation she'd never wanted to learn. Maya was 41 now, Sofia was 14, and she was missing her daughter's adolescence while trying to save the world. One evening, Sofia confronted her. "You're never home anymore." "I know, sweetheart. But this work, I know the work is important. But I'm important too. I'm your daughter. And lately I feel like I'm scheduled between board meetings and conference calls." Maya felt the words like a physical blow. "You're right. I'm sorry. I've been so focused on helping other families that I've neglected my own. I don't want you to stop the work. But Mommy, you're not the only person who can do this anymore. You've built something that can function without you being everywhere all the time. Dr. Kim told you that in therapy. You told me you learned to delegate. So delegate." Maya pulled her daughter close. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from you and Abuela, but also from watching you burn out, trying to do everything yourself. You're not helping anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." The conversation was a wake-up call. Maya had built the foundation to be sustainable, but she hadn't stepped back enough to let it actually sustain itself. She was still trying to control everything, to be everywhere, to prove she deserved the fortune she'd inherited. She called a leadership retreat. The foundation's directors gathered at a retreat center in the Berkshires for 3 days of strategic planning. "I need to step back," Maya told them. "Not away, but back. I'm interfering with the organization's growth by insisting on being involved in everything. We need to restructure so the foundation can thrive without requiring my constant input." Dr. Martinez nodded. "I've been wanting to suggest that for a year, but didn't want to overstep. Please overstep. All of you. Tell me what you need to do your jobs effectively without me bottlenecking decisions." The conversations were difficult but productive. They created a new organizational structure with clear lines of authority. Regional directors would have full autonomy for operations within their budgets and strategic frameworks. The national leadership team would meet quarterly for strategic planning rather than Maya making every significant decision. Maya's role would shift from operational management to strategic vision and public advocacy. She'd represent the foundation publicly, maintain relationships with major donors and partners, and ensure the mission stayed true to Patricia's original vision. But day-to-day operations would run without her constant involvement. "How do you feel about that?" Dr. Kim asked in their next therapy session. Terrified, Maya admitted, "What if they don't need me anymore? What if I step back and realize I'm not actually essential? Would that be such a bad thing?" You built an organization that can function without you being the center of everything. That's success, not failure. But then what's my purpose? Dr. Kim smiled. Maybe it's time to find out who Maya Torres is beyond the foundation, beyond being Patricia's granddaughter, beyond the story of the inheritance. Who are you when you're not trying to prove you deserve what you received? The question haunted Maya. Who was she? For 8 years, her entire identity had been wrapped up in honoring Patricia's legacy, in helping others, in proving that she was worth the fortune she'd inherited. She built something extraordinary, yes. But in the process, she'd lost sight of herself. She started taking Wednesdays off completely. No foundation work, no emails, no calls. Just time with Sofia, time sailing, time being rather than doing. It felt wrong at first, indulgent, like she was shirking responsibility. But slowly, she rediscovered parts of herself that had been buried under years of survival and then years of service. She'd always loved reading, but hadn't had time for it. Now she joined a book club, discovering the joy of discussing literature with people who knew nothing about the foundation and didn't care about her wealth. She started painting, something she'd done as a teenager but abandoned when life got hard. Her work was amateurish but satisfying, a way of expressing emotions she didn't have words for. She even started dating cautiously, carefully, aware that her wealth complicated relationships. Most men were either intimidated or opportunistic. But eventually, she met David Chun, a high school teacher who'd grown up poor in San Francisco's Chinatown, who understood struggle and valued authenticity over status. Their first date was coffee, intentionally casual. Maya had learned to hide her wealth in first meetings, afraid of attracting the wrong kind of attention. "So what do you do?" David asked. "I run a nonprofit that helps single parents." "What about you?" "I teach history, American history specifically, with a focus on labor movements and economic justice." They talked for 3 hours about poverty and education and systemic inequality. David had no idea who she was, hadn't seen the news stories, didn't know about the inheritance. He just saw Maya, a woman who cared about helping people and had thoughtful opinions about social justice. On their third date, she told him the truth. About Patricia, about the boat, about the $150 million fortune and the foundation built with it. "I need you to know before this goes any further. My life is complicated. I have resources that change how people see me. If that's too much." "Maya," David interrupted gently. "I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment with 6 people. My parents worked in garment factories for $5 an hour. I became a teacher because I wanted to help kids like I was. Your wealth doesn't intimidate me. What you're doing with it, that impresses me. That matters." They were married 2 years later in a small ceremony at the marina, standing on the deck of the Esperanza Del Mar with 50 close friends and family. Sofia was 16, serving as maid of honor, wearing the same shade of blue as the ocean. Maya wore a simple white dress and Patricia's pearls. David wore a suit his father had worn to his own wedding 40 years earlier. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising partnership and honesty and mutual support in building lives of meaning. As they kissed, sealing their commitment, Maya looked out over the water and felt Patricia's presence. This was what her grandmother had wanted for her. Not just financial security, but the freedom to choose. To choose love, to choose purpose, to choose a life built on values rather than survival. The foundation's 10th anniversary fell on a perfect June day. They organized a celebration at the marina, inviting current and former recipients, staff members past and present, donors and partners who'd supported the work. Over 3,000 people attended. The crowd was diverse, representing every city where the foundation operated, every program they'd created, every life they'd touched. Maya stood on a temporary stage erected near Slip 47, looking out at faces that represented a decade of work. She thought about the woman she'd been when this started. Terrified, desperate, facing eviction with $47 in her bank account. She thought about Sofia, then 6, now 16, and confident and kind. She thought about Patricia, who'd started all of this with $800 and a dream of freedom. 10 years ago, Maya began, her voice carrying over the crowd. I inherited a rusty boat everyone thought was worthless. My family laughed. They thought my grandmother had given me one final reminder that I was a failure, a disappointment, someone who deserved nothing. The crowd was silent, listening. But that rusty boat held something they couldn't see. Not just the money, though that mattered, but a message, a legacy, proof that invisible people matter, that dismissed dreams can come true, that society's judgments aren't the final word on anyone's worth. She paused, emotion threatening to overwhelm her words. My grandmother, Patricia Alvarado, built a $150 million fortune from $800 in savings. She did it quietly, secretly, while her family dismissed her as poor and struggling. She proved that wealth isn't about what you show, but what you grow. And then she gave it all to me, not because I was perfect, but because I was struggling, and she remembered what that felt like. Maya looked at Sofia, standing with David in the front row. Her daughter smiled encouragement. 10 years later, we've helped over 100,000 families across 42 cities. We've provided emergency housing for 87,000 nights. We've funded 4,200 small businesses. We've helped 12,000 people get education or training for better careers. We've proven that investing in people works better than managing their poverty. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya waited for it to fade. But numbers don't tell the real story. The real story is in each of you. Andrea Lopez, who went from night janitor to pediatric ICU nurse. Keisha Johnson, who built a catering company that employs 12 people. James Rodriguez, who went from homeless to running our housing program. Every person here represents a life transformed, potential unleashed, dreams realized. She pulled out Patricia's journal, the one she'd found on the boat 10 years ago. My grandmother wrote, "The best revenge is building something so beautiful that people forget what they were angry about in the first place." I think she'd be proud of what we've built. Not just a foundation, but a community, a movement. Proof that dismissed people can do extraordinary things when given the chance. Maya's voice broke slightly. Abuela Patricia, wherever you are, thank you. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Thank you for believing I was worth saving. Thank you for giving me not just money, but permission. Permission to believe in myself, to build something meaningful, to prove that invisible people matter. She looked out at the crowd, at thousands of people whose lives have been touched by one woman's 40-year secret. This foundation will continue long after I'm gone. We're establishing an endowment that will ensure these programs exist in perpetuity. Future generations will benefit from what we've built here, and they'll know it started with a grandmother who refused to let her family's judgment define her worth, and a granddaughter who honored that refusal by helping others do the same. The applause was deafening. People were crying, laughing, embracing. Maya stepped down from the stage and was immediately surrounded by people whose lives she'd touched. A woman pressed a photo into her hand. "This is my daughter's college graduation. She's the first in our family to go to college. Your foundation scholarship made it possible." A man showed her keys. "I bought my first house last month. I was homeless 3 years ago. Your housing program gave me stability to rebuild my life." Story after story, life after life. Proof that the model worked, that investing in people mattered, that Patricia's legacy was living on in ways she never could have imagined. As the sun set over the marina, Maya found herself alone on the Esperanza's deck. The party continued on shore, but she needed a moment of quiet to process the day. Sofia climbed aboard, joining her mother at the rail. "It's pretty amazing what you've built." "What Abuela started," Maya corrected. "What you both built. She gave you the tools. You did the work." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the water turn gold in the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" Sofia asked. "You could have kept all the money, lived like a billionaire. Instead, you gave most of it away." Maya thought about that, about the life she could have had versus the life she'd chosen. No regrets. Money was never the point. Freedom was the point. The ability to choose who I wanted to be rather than who poverty forced me to be. And I chose this. Helping others find their freedom. That's worth more than any mansion or yacht or luxury I could have bought. "You're weird, Mom." Sofia said with a smile. Most people who get $150 million don't give it away. Most people who get $150 million didn't start where I started, didn't know what it felt like to be invisible. The money mattered because it gave me power to help. But the helping was always the goal, not the having. Sofia leaned her head on Maya's shoulder. I'm proud of you. Abuela would be too. Maya wrapped her arm around her daughter. I'm proud of you too. You're growing up knowing you matter, that you're valued, that you can be anything you want. That's what this was all for. Breaking the cycle, making sure the next generation doesn't have to fight just to survive. As darkness fell, they returned to the party. The celebration continued late into the night, people sharing stories and dreams and gratitude. Maya found herself thinking about the metal box in the bilge that had started everything, about opening it with shaking hands and finding more than money, finding proof that she mattered, that invisible people could become visible, that dismissed dreams could come true. She thought about the woman she'd been, working 3 jobs and facing eviction, about the grandmother who'd seen her and chosen her, about the fortune built on patience and invested with purpose. And she thought about all the women who would come after, who would benefit from the foundation's work, who would learn that their struggles didn't define their worth, that poverty wasn't a moral failing, that society's judgments weren't the final word. The rusty boat, everyone laughed, had held $150 million in secrets. But more valuable than any of that was the lesson contained in those secrets, that freedom is built, not given. That worth comes from within, not from others' opinions. And that building something beautiful is always the best revenge. Maya Torres had inherited a boat, but what she'd really inherited was permission to believe in herself, to build something meaningful, to prove that invisible people could change the world. And she had. One life at a time, one family at a time, one generation at a time. The Esperanza Del Mar, once dismissed as worthless, now gleamed in the marina lights. A symbol of transformation, of potential hidden beneath rust, of hope waiting to be discovered. Just like Maya herself. Just like everyone the foundation helped. Just like anyone brave enough to look beneath the surface and believe that impossible things were possible. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.